So I have 8 years of product management experience. The first 5 of that was actually as a product owner slash product manager. Then I was promoted to senior product management. So I would say all total experience as a product owner is right around 7 to 8 years. But understanding I spent most of that time in senior product management. Product management is somewhat of an art, I would say. You have to have business acumen, you have to have technical acumen, you have to be able to communicate well with others. It really requires a wide variety of experiences and expertise. Product management, in and of itself, is basically making sure that the correct product is built, right? So it's being the voice of the customer, working with engineering and others within the organization to make sure that the products are actually fit for purpose. Um, you're always striving to build a product that meets product market fit. Product management is definitely very challenging. It involves some project management. It involves, like I said before, communicating with others and requires a large variety of skills. It is essential to creating products. And like I said, product management really is more of an art than it is a science. So, three absolutely critical things that I do in my current role as a product manager is first to communicate with customers or people who interface with the customers. So, this could be individuals who work on client teams, it could be clients themselves, conducting interviews, really understanding the needs of the customer. And so that's critical item number one is talking to and understanding the customer. Critical item number two is having a relationship with engineering. Much of what you do as a product manager is around relationships and communication. So being able to interface and talk the talk with engineering, being able to have good working relationships with them is very, very important. And then I would say the other critical role is being able to communicate with senior stakeholders, right? You need to be able to communicate up in the organization and down as well. So you need to be able to delegate to others in the organization, but you also need to be able to talk with top executives, including the CEO and other stakeholders as well. So communication really is key as well. So the most critical attributes in defining and creating epics and stories is, first of all, you have to understand the high level goals, right? So what is the vision of my product? What are my departmental goals or my company goals, right? Like what are we moving toward? And then we also need to understand the specific themes. Typically, epics and stories, if they're functional requirements, sometimes even if they're non functional requirements, will fit into specific themes. So it is important to keep those organized and understanding what those things are when you're defining epics and stories. If you are working with a product that has UX, you also need to work with the UI or UX designers and always keep the experience of the customer in mind when you are writing epics and when you are writing stories that fall into those epics. It's also important to keep quality in mind. It's important to keep very specific acceptance criteria in mind as well when you are writing epics and stories to make sure that the product that you're building is fit for purpose for the customer. I would argue that it's probably very difficult to just pick out one value as a product manager, but I would say the most important is, like I've mentioned before, building a product that is fit for the customer, right? You need to be the voice of the customer. And that probably is the most important value of a product manager because you are the one who is representing the customer. You have to fully understand the use cases and the needs of the customers and how you are creating solutions for those customers. So it's very, very important that you are passionate to build products that are fit for purpose and that will create the best user experience. So again, the best example, the best value that you provide as a product manager is being the voice of the customer. Yes, I am very familiar with OKRs. I've been writing OKRs now for at least 6 or 7 years. Um, Objectives and key results are actually the way that we manage our quarterly goals in my current company. We write objectives and key results in tandem with engineering. So the product and engineering teams write them together. And we present those up to senior leadership for approval on a quarterly basis. So I think I sort of answered this before, but the relationship between product management and engineering is absolutely crucial, right? It is up to product or the product team to prioritize a backlog, to be the voice of the customer, and to really outline and define the product that we need to build for the customer. Then you have to have clear communication with engineering to ensure that they understand the product that needs to be built. Um, by way of documentation, by way of communication, verbal communication, however we can get that done. But it is very, very important that product management has a very good working relationship with engineering. Also, then there is the user experience or the UX designers. If you actually have a UI to your product, it's very, very important that you are in lockstep with the UX team. And in fact, the best way to build a product is to work in small squads that would include at least one engineer, at least one UX designer, and at least one product manager. Typically, your squad would be 5 to 7 people, with one product manager, one UX person, and then the remaining individuals being engineering. And those three sets of people work very, very closely with one another. From my experience, that is absolutely the best way to get a product built. So the way that you know your product is successful and is delivering value is if it's actually being used, if it's being accepted by the customers, if it's bringing in revenue. It really depends on the type of product. You can run NPR scoring. You can also and you can also run surveys. You can survey your customers. You can do user interviews. You can do focus groups to get feedback from the customers. So it's very, very important that you get feedback. And it's also very important that you manage the P&L to see if you actually are driving revenue as well. So if the delivery team did not deliver what the business had asked for, I would most definitely look inward to myself and to the team I'm managing or the entire product team, whoever's in charge of the product from the product side, to find out what we did wrong. Did we define the product improperly? Was the product not QA'd? Did we not do UAT on the product? Like why would the delivery team not deliver what the business had asked for? Because it's up to the product team to define what the business is asking for and to, again, work in lockstep with the delivery team to make sure that what is delivered is what the business asked for. In fact, products should be the very last line of defense, so to speak, where the product team is actually doing UAT or user acceptance testing to actually say, yes, this is what the product needs to do. I accept, I approve of what the product is doing before the product is ever released to the market or before it's ever delivered. So actually, this scenario should never happen. Yes, I do have experience in delivering a technology solution in a product management capacity. In fact, um, all of my product management experience has been with technology. So influencing overall product strategy is actually something I do on a daily basis as a senior product manager. One of my duties is to actually work with the team and create the product strategy. I am responsible for all of the high level requirements. I am responsible for um, outlining the vision and the strategy and the tactics to create the product. So this is done on a daily basis. The most recent example of influencing product strategy is we are at the end of our near the end of our fiscal year, and we are doing business cases. And so I have to present my 3-year long-term plan for the overall product strategy. So, in fact, I just presented it this morning. So this is actually the most recent example of influencing overall product strategy. I have to convince the senior stakeholders all the way up to the C-suite to give us funding for our particular product. And I have outlined the strategy on how we're actually going to achieve our goals and meet the revenue goals based on our business case. So I have found through my years of doing product discovery that the actual most effective way to facilitate discovery sessions is to have two-on-one interviews. So that is, you have a UX individual along with a product manager who are interviewing individuals. I've tried focus groups before, and they deliver some value, but they're not nearly as valuable as doing two-on-one interviews. And that's actually how I've done discovery for, gosh, probably 7 or 8 years now. And the way you do that is you come up with a list of questions that you're going to ask the users. Typically, if there's a UX involved, you would have a prototype ready to go. The UX designer would present the prototype and be asking the questions. The product manager could also ask some questions if needed. Typically, you have one interviewer and one person taking notes. You would do typically 5 to 10 user interviews, and then you would do a readout at the end of those, and then you would iterate and continuously run discovery sessions. So again, the most effective technique that I've found would be two-on-one discovery interviews. So some of my hobbies and interests are, well, they revolve around my family. So I'm married with 3 children, 3 older children. My youngest is 16. So during baseball season, I go to his baseball games. My other 2 kids are adults at this point. Other hobbies and interests would be, spending time outdoors, doing some cooking and gardening and traveling. We really, really love to travel, but I would say most of my free time is spent at the baseball field watching my son play baseball for about 8 or 9 months out of the year. Um, but I do like to get out of the house for sure. Love to be outside. Yes, I confirm you may use this video for hiring and evaluation purposes.